Supervisors to order, please, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please remain standing because following the Pledge of Allegiance will be a moment of silent reflection. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll have the reading of the notice, please.
The adjourned organizational meeting of the Marathon County Board of Supervisors, composed of 38 members, will convene at the Marathon County Courthouse Assembly Room, 500 Forest Street, Wausau, on Tuesday, June 22nd, 2021 at 7 p.m., and the agenda was duly signed and posted.
Thank you. I would like to request everyone put their cell phones and any other electronic devices on silent or vibrate as to not interrupt the meeting. And also remind all supervisors to please mute their phones and or WebEx at this point until you're requesting to speak or called upon. And we will proceed to roll call. I'd ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Beestrom. Here. Bizotto.
Here.
Boots.
Here.
Book.
Here.
Butke.
Here.
Christensen.
Here.
Seiler. Conway.
Here.
Dickinson.
Here.
Drabeck.
Here.
Fisher.
Here.
Gaber.
Here.
Gibbs.
Here.
Gonering. Guild.
Here.
Gums.
Here.
Harris.
Here.
Jacobson.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Krause.
Here.
Lamont.
Here.
Longenhan.
Here.
Leahy. Lowe.
Here.
Mask.
Here.
McEwen.
Here.
Oberbeck.
Here.
Opal.
Here.
Robinson. Rosenberg.
Here.
Soybert.
Here.
Van Cray.
Here.
Zhang.
Here.
Seiler. Gonering. Leahy.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I'd like to welcome all the visitors that we have with us this evening, along with our viewing audience. And we'll move on to item B, Education Presentation Report. Standing Committee Chairpersons or Designees. Okay, we will move on to item C, Consent Agenda. Item C8 through C13A. What is your pleasure? Motion by Supervisor Longenhan and seconded by Supervisor Drabeck. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chair, this is Supervisor Lowe.
Supervisor Lowe, go ahead.
I would like to request that item C11C be pulled from the consent agenda.
Item 11, item 11C is pulled from the consent agenda and be voted on separately. On the balance, any further discussion on the rest of the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, items C8 through item C13A1, excluding item 11C, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? No? Motion carries. And now on to item C, 11C, County Board Rules Review Committee, appointments. What is your pleasure? Motion by Supervisor Christensen and second by Supervisor Jacobson, or excuse me, Langenhan. Any discussion? Supervisor Lowe is
Supervisor Lowe.
recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I won't make this long, and I won't make this long because of my respect for you, Mr. Chair. So at our first meeting of this term, I made the argument that there needed to be representation on our committees that reflected the makeup of the board. And I do not see that here in this committee. In addition, there is one appointment to this committee where the appointee made a public statement that disparaged persons of color, persons that identify differently, and among community that I belong to. I cannot support this appointee. With that said, this committee is an important committee where they will review and bring the recommendations of rule changes to the next board members in the new term. And respectfully, Mr. Chair, I ask and urge you to think about representation when making appointments. I cannot vote yes for this committee, and I will be voting no. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Lowe. I will inform the full board the process in which I used to appoint members to this committee. If you recall, in June, actually in May, I had requested any supervisor that had interest in serving on the executive committee to please contact me. At the last meeting, when the agenda had to go out, had exactly the 6 members that had expressed interest, and so I appointed those 6 members. I did not choose any one position over any one person over another person. I had 6 openings. The chair of that committee is spelled out in our board rules, and I had requested that any supervisor that had interest on serving on the Rules Review Committee to contact me. I did not have an abundance of appointments to make to that committee, and I did have, after the appointments came out, I did have some people that had expressed interest, and I explained to them the same process that I just explained to you all. And I also explained to that supervisor that the chair of the Rules Review Committee welcomes any supervisor that has interest and historically has taken any discussion points from every supervisor that attends those Rules Review Committee meetings. So that is the process that I used, and I totally understand Supervisor Lowe's comments. However, again, I appointed people that expressed interest, and I only had 6 people and 6 appointments. So there's a motion to approve the County Board Rules Review Committee. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion to approve the Rules Review Committee appointments signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no.
No.
And the motion passes. It is not unanimous. Moving on to item D, proclamations. Item D14, June is Dairy Month. What is your pleasure? Motion by Supervisor Butke and second by Supervisor Fisher. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve the proclamation June is Dairy Month, or June Dairy Month, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. We go to item D15, World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. What is your pleasure? Supervisor Johnson with the motion and Supervisor Rosenberg with the second. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. We will move on to ordinances. Item E16, amending section 2.05, parent 1, parent D, the General Code of Ordinances to provide for the Board of Health membership to track statutory language, ordinance 22-21. What is your pleasure? Supervisor Robinson with the motion, Supervisor Christensen with the second. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion of approving the amending of section 2.05, parent 1, parent D of the General Code of Ordinances to provide for the Board of Health membership to track statutory language, ordinance 22-21, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign, or excuse me, opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. We will move on to item E17, amending section 2.01, parent 1, parent F of the Marathon County General Code of Ordinances to require in-person meeting attendance for the county board annual organized, adjourned annual and organized, or adjourned organizational voters meeting, ordinance 23-21. What is your pleasure? Motion by Supervisor Christensen and second by Supervisor Beestrom. Is there any discussion? Again, I think the original resolution did not include the language that would require in-person for closed sessions, so I would request if there's anybody that would offer an amendment to include the language that in-person attendance be for any closed session.
So moved.
Supervisor Johnson with the motion and Supervisor Conway with the second. Any discussion on the amendment? Any discussion on the amendment? Again, the amendment is to require in-person meetings for any meeting that has scheduled a closed session on it. That includes committee meetings. Any discussion? On the amendment, all those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion is carried. Is there any other discussion on the motion as amended? I did have the opportunity to discuss this with several other county board chairmans. Every county is having these discussions about whether or not we have in-person meetings and go to full in-person meetings. Several counties have even had a discussion about, well, there would have to be a quorum of a committee in person. And that would lead to who's going to be excused, and it would be leading up to the chair to make a decision on who's asking to be excused or to attend virtually. It's an option, but I throw it out for discussion if anybody wants to proceed down that road. There also was a discussion about using, requiring that board members, if they're going to attend virtually, that they utilize WebEx to try to eliminate some of the technical challenges with phone call-in or other forms of virtual attendance. Is there any debate, discussion about the requirement that anybody that is using the virtual meeting option be required to utilize WebEx? Supervisor Johnson.
You're talking about the educational meeting, correct?
Correct. Any of the other committee meetings and/or the educational meeting, one of the suggestions from the CCIT director to eliminate some of the challenges that we have with multiple platforms and multiple attendances would be to require any supervisor that is going to attend virtually, that they are going to be required to utilize WebEx as the tool that they attend virtually with.
Mr. Chairman, I have my hand up.
Supervisor Lamont, go ahead. I did not see your hand. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I understand this correctly, the ordinance is to require us to be in person for the organizational voting meetings.
That is correct. And any meetings that would require a closed session, as it's written, as it's worded right now. It would require attendance for the voters' meeting, and it would require attendance to any meeting that has closed session language on it.
Can I continue?
Go ahead,
Mr.
Supervisor.
Chairman? While I like the amendment that was added about the closed session, due to the discussion we had last at our education meeting, I would like to move to table this until the November organizational meeting, 2021. Due to the state of COVID still and other people's personal preferences, due to travel and various things.
Is there a second? There's a motion to postpone until the November meeting. Is there a second?
This is Supervisor Mask will second it.
Supervisor Mass with a second. Is there any discussion? Supervisor Gums first, and then we'll go to Supervisor Johnson second.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My concern was what was going to, how were you going to make the call to go back to the way we're doing it now? What was it going to take? What was it going to take to go back to the COVID thing? That was what my question was. Sorry, the comment was not about the tabling. It was about before I had my hand up.
Okay, so the question becomes, what criteria would we be utilizing that would require us to go back to in-person or not in-person voters meeting is what you're asking?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I would say that we would look to the health department and CDC's guidelines and recommendations. Supervisor Johnson is next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to note that the weekly report out of the Health Department stated there were less than 2 cases per day, the lowest rate we've had in more than a year of new COVID cases. We're in really good shape as far as that goes. We need more people to get vaccinated. I believe we're at 41.5% in the county are fully vaccinated. And, you know, I support coming back. I think we're a more effective board in person. I think just the quality of the meeting and it's not disjointed, and it's a better way to do business, and I fully support coming back in and urge my fellow supervisors, if they haven't gotten the shots, please consider doing so, and take care of yourselves. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other discussion? Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I read the report and there were 11 new cases.
Correct, but where you're saying the same thing. Supervisor Johnson said there was less than two or less cases per day. In a 7-day window, that would mean 14 if there was 2 per day. Supervisor Christensen.
Yes, Mr. Chair, would you explain what we're voting on right now, okay?
Well,
How
when we
we're
get
voting.
to-
I know
when we-
how I want to vote, but
when we get to voting right now, there's a motion on the table to postpone discussion or postpone voting on the motion to return to the November meeting. So there would be, this would postpone any further action on this item until November of 2021. That's the motion on the table. Supervisor Langenhan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, in regards to the recent clarification with that motion, was the term table or postponement used?
I think the supervisor said was to table, but we have never historically utilized the word table, and we have historically always clarified that to say postpone, and I think that was the intent of the supervisor, and I would ask for clarification from the supervisor if his intent was not to specifically postpone the vote until November. Supervisor,
Postpone, Mr. Chair.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Postpone.
Any further discussion? Okay, the motion is to postpone the vote to returning to in-person meetings for the voters meeting and closed session to the November 2021 meeting. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? No?
No.
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 My ruling is that the noes have it. It is a simple majority, and so the motion is defeated. So we're back to the original
Mr.
motion
Chairman?
as amended. Supervisor Gums?
Mr. Chairman? This is
Supervisor Opel, go ahead. Supervisor Opel.
I'd ask for a roll call vote.
On the last vote, on the last motion?
Yes.
So you're requesting a division of the House, I'm assuming? So you're questioning the chair's decision and you're requesting a division of the House?
Well, it was awful, you know, the way that came in was kind of segmented, in other words. There seemed to be, the yes votes seemed to be all in unison, and then the no votes seemed to come in dribbled one at a time.
Is there any objection to division? So I'll call the roll. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll. Again, a aye vote will postpone returning. A no vote will proceed with the motion to at least have a vote on returning and changing our board rules.
Okay, starting with Supervisor Book.
Aye.
Butke.
No.
Christensen.
No.
Seiler.
Aye.
Conway.
No.
Dickinson.
No.
Drabeck.
No.
Fisher.
No.
Gaber.
Aye.
Gibbs.
No.
Guild.
No.
Gums.
No.
Harris.
No.
Jacobson.
No.
Johnson.
No.
Krause. Lamont.
Aye.
Longenhan.
No.
Leahy.
No.
Lowe.
No.
Mask.
Aye.
McEwen.
No.
Overbeck.
No.
Opal.
Aye.
Robinson.
No.
Rosenberg.
No.
Soibert.
Yes.
Van Cray.
Aye.
Zhang.
No.
Krause. Supervisor Krause, if you're voting, you're muted. We cannot hear you. Supervisor Krause? Thank you.
Aye.
Hey, what about Beastrom?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Chair.
there was no vote for,
I'm sorry. Supervisor Beastrom?
No.
Bizotto?
No.
Boots?
No.
Thank you.
And the motion is defeated, 23-9. Now, back to the motion as amended. Again, the motion that is before you is that we will return to in-person meetings for the voters' meeting and any closed session meetings. Is there any further discussion? Because this is a rule change, this does require a 2/3 majority of the board, and I would ask the clerk to call the roll.
Good.
An aye vote will support returning to in-person. A no vote will not support returning to in-person.
Butke.
Aye.
Christensen. Seiler.
No.
Conway. Dickinson.
Aye.
Drabeck.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Gaber.
No.
Gibbs.
Aye.
Guild.
Aye.
Gums.
Aye.
Harris.
Aye.
Jacobson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Krause.
No.
Lamont.
No.
Longenhan.
Aye.
Leahy.
Aye.
Lowe.
Aye.
Mask.
No.
McEwen.
Aye.
Overbeck,
Aye.
Opal,
Oh.
Robinson,
Aye.
Rosenberg,
Aye.
Soibert,
Aye.
Van Cray,
Aye.
Zhang,
Aye.
Beestrom,
Aye.
Risotto,
Aye.
Boots,
Aye.
Book.
Aye.
Thank you.
And the motion is carried, 26-6. We will be returning to in-person meetings, starting in the July, for the July voters' meeting, and any meetings that do have closed session language on them. And we will move on to resolutions. Human Resources, Finance and Property Committee, F-18, to approve 2021 budget transfers for Marathon County Department of Appropriations, Resolution 38-21. What is your pleasure? Motion by Supervisor Fisher and second by Supervisor Dickinson. Any discussion? Again, this is requires a 2/3 majority vote. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And the motion is carried unanimously. And we'll move on to the Executive Committee. Item G19, to designate the Executive Committee of the Marathon County Board of Supervisors as the 2021 Redistricting Committee, Resolution 39-21. What is your pleasure? Supervisor Butke with the motion and Supervisor Draybeck with the second. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to designate the Executive Committee of the County Board of Supervisors as the 2021 Redistricting Committee, Resolution 39-21, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. We will move on to item G20, a resolution to suspend Section 2.05, Parent 2 of the Marathon County General Code of Ordinances, the Marathon County Board Rule governing the Capital Improvement Program Committee for the remainder of 2021, Resolution 40-21. Supervisor Robinson with the motion and Supervisor Fisher with the second. And Supervisor Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I want to point out that this is not in action taken because the Capital Improvement Process Committee has failed us. It's because the capital improvement process has failed us. We've had some very good people, dedicated people who have been involved in ranking our projects in the past, and we thank them for their service, and it's been helpful. The problem has been that the county board has struggled with the recommendations, and they've struggled with their role in the process, and we thank them for their service. But earlier today, the Human Resources, Finance, and Property Committee met and sort of adopted a strategy on how we would move forward. We broke down the capital improvement projects into a number of categories, including rolling stock. And we will be bringing a resolution in at the next meeting to deal with the issue of 2022 rolling stock purchases, approving that as part of the 2021 capital improvement plan and taking the money out of our reserves due to supply side issues. There, a number of department heads have indicated that if they don't put an order in 2021, they won't get the equipment in 2022. So we want to recognize that there's a replacement schedule for sheriff's vehicles and others. So we'll be bringing a resolution in to deal with rolling stock at that time. We'll also be looking at a separate category for IT purchases, and we're looking at that issue of software. We're moving more and more away from hardware, and we used to be able to capitalize the software, and you're entering into leases, which are typically considered an operational expense. We'll be looking at, can we capitalize some of those longer-term lease agreements in an effort to have them be part of our capital improvement plan. We're also then going to break down two components of the facilities maintenance. One that is the required maintenance that led, projects that, like the jail replacement, the library roof, and others where we're doing needed facility maintenance. And then we'll have another category that deals with facility expansions or significant remodels that are not related to maintenance activities, which would include projects such as moving social services to the North Central Healthcare facilities and others. And then we'll have a catch-all for all other projects. We're going to try that. We're going to try to develop a 2-year capital improvement plan with some meat for this year. So we'll have a 2022 and 2023 plan. At least that's our goal. And our long-term goal is to get at a 5-year capital plan. But we think that right now there are a number of moving parts. We've through facility management, we've got some software and tracking packages in place. We're trying to figure out how do we utilize that for replacement of equipment and in life cycle analysis of things. So we're looking at trying to develop that 5-year capital plan, but that probably won't be done in the context of this budget, but hopefully for future budgets. So that's where we are and what our plan is.
Any other discussion? I too want to express my sincere thank you to not only the board members on the CIP committee, but also the citizen members for diligently and dedicated a lot of time and effort in that process. They, again, as the chair of the HR Finance Committee reiterated, they did not fail us. The process. So again, I want to sincerely thank them for their dedicated work. Any other discussion? Supervisor Fisher.
I would just like to follow up one more item that Supervisor Robinson brought up. One of the main parts of this discussion was really to identify the items that have kind of been languishing when we talk about the difference between capital and actual maintenance. When we have assets in place that are, a prime example is the library roof that everybody knows about. This way we will be able to identify those items faster in order to say, hey, are we right now, every year that goes by, is there more damage happening to our assets that we should be stopping? So we're able to identify that into maintenance versus a capital item that goes into the ranking and take care of those faster so we don't lose the value of the assets that we've already spent upon. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, this again is a rule change and does require a 2/3 majority vote. I would ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Seiler.
Aye.
Conway.
Aye.
Dickinson.
Aye.
Drabeck.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Gaber.
Aye.
Gibbs.
Aye.
Gonnering. Guild.
Aye.
Gums.
Aye.
Harris.
Aye.
Jacobson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Rousey. Lamont.
Aye.
Longenhan.
Aye.
Leahy.
Aye.
Lowe.
Aye.
Mask.
Aye.
McEwen.
Aye.
Overbeck.
Aye.
Opal.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
Rosenberg.
Aye.
Soibert. Van Cray.
Aye.
Jong.
Aye.
Beestrom.
Aye.
Bizotto. Boots.
Aye.
Book.
Aye.
Butke.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Krause.
Aye.
Soibert. Bizotto.
Aye.
Thank you.
And the motion is passed unanimously. We'll move on to miscellaneous business. Announcements and/or requests, and I would remind the full board that per rules, the announcements are to be kept to 30 seconds or less. And I do have one announcement, and that is if you are here in person, please check your mailbox in the clerk's office and pick up the mail. Any other announcements and/or requests?
Madam Chairman, quick announcement.
Supervisor Harris and then Supervisor Gums next.
Thank you, Chairman. Full disclosure, I work for Wisconsin Judicare. Wisconsin Judicare is having its 5th annual Golf for Justice fundraiser dedicated to the memory of attorney Sarah Quirt, who died in the service to justice in 2017. The fundraiser is on Friday, September the 10th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Grisham, in Grisham, Wisconsin at Pine Hills Golf Course. If you'd like more information, you can look on the Wisconsin Judicare website and contact us. And if you'd like to just donate, that is fine too. And if you'd like to donate specifically to what we call Sarah's cases, which are cases that are just representing victims of domestic abuse, you can do that as well. Thank you.
Okay, we have Supervisor Gums next and then Supervisor Lamont.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Invite everyone to this Sunday to the Colby FFA dairy breakfast out here on Highway A, just down the road from my place towards Dorchester. I'll keep a couple of loads of hay, small bales ready for some of the supervisors that want to be farmers for a day that they can unload before they get their breakfast. $5. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Lamont is next.
Not.
Okay, your hand was still raised. Thank you. Any other announcements? Vice Chair McEwen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank the members that were willing to serve on the Rules Review Committee. Before we start scheduling meetings, which I'm anticipating will be in the fall, I will have a doodle survey sent out so we can try to determine what days and times work best for the committee members. So, thank you.
Okay, any other announcements and/or requests? Supervisor Johnson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just ask the Vice Chair that he notice the rest of the board when those meetings are going to occur. I'd appreciate that.
Thank you. I did do that a couple times. I forgot, but I do appreciate the reminder, but I'll make sure that I do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other announcements and/or requests? Seeing none, we're down to item 22. What is your pleasure? Supervisor Longenau with a motion and Supervisor Harris with a second. Any discussion? The motion is to adjourn. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed that want to stay here, say no. And we stand adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.